The Conservatives have already said not good enough, didn't have enough support for the energy sector, too intrusive on provincial jurisdiction, which was kind of interesting since the provinces are dying for more federal money for things like health care. But they don't like it. They won't support it. The Bloc Québécois, they don't appear to want to support it. Jagmeet Singh's kind of saying, it's not what I want, so I may not support it, but I still may support it. It's just words on paper. So where are we? Are we going to have a vote on the speech from the throne in a number of days and go to a general election? Or will the NDP, at this moment, the party that is the most likely partner on this? All right. So there are lots in it. So let's dig a little deeper because there are some substantial issues here. I mean, just the extension of the wage subsidy until September for businesses is a big and expensive promise. But what else is there? One of the pillars was taxing digital giants. There's also talking about healthcare, seniors' disabilities, climate, Indigenous issues. I mean, there's a lot here. Let's try to dig into some of those and get the government's perspective on this. The Canadian Heritage Minister Steven Guilbeault is joining us. I think he's here from Ottawa right now. Minister Guilbeault, good to have you here. Because let's start with your portfolio, because one of the things, and there was very few details here, you are going to crack down on tax avoidance by digital giants. I assume this is what a lot of people used to call the Netflix tax or on Facebook. What exactly does that mean?
Well, what we said in our platform during the last campaign is that we would ask web giants, just like any other companies in Canada, to pay GST. And in fact, at the end of last year, the Prime Minister did say that he anticipated that this would be in the 2020 budget. Now, obviously, because of COVID, we haven't seen that budget yet, but I too anticipate that come next budget, the web giants will start paying GST, just like any other companies do in Canada. We've also, and this is obviously not me as Heritage Minister. This will obviously be my colleague at Finance, Minister Chrystia Freeland, who would be working on this specifically. But I, as Heritage Minister, have said that I would table a bill this fall that will ensure that web giants are contributing to investing in Canadian stories, in music, TV, film, which they're not doing right now. And we just want them to pay their fair share. We have Canadian companies like Bell and Videotron and CBC investing in those sectors, and we want the web giants to do the same.
Okay, but hold on. There's two different things here. There's pay the GST, which some of them are amenable to doing. And then there's what you and I have spoken about, and you've spoken about a lot, which is regulating them to actually have to invest in Canadian content, regulating some of their content. You had talked about regulating, quote, what qualifies as news. So let's move to that. What kind of payment into content will they have to have?
Hold on, Evan. I was on your show to say that we would not be regulating what web giants say. That's simply not true. So I talked about the bill to ensure that they invest. No, I said I would table a bill so that they will invest in Canadian stories, in Canadian artists. I've also said that we would be tabling a bill like France and Australia are doing to ensure that web giants also do their fair share when it comes to compensating the media for their use of your content, which they're not doing right now. So Facebook and the Google of this world should be compensating Canadian media decently, equitably for the use of news that you generate and through which they make a lot of money. And this is another way we want them to participate in the Canadian ecosystem.
You and I are going to have a more detailed conversation about that, but because there's a lot more than just that today, can you explain to us the promise here about creating childcare, because this is a really interesting, invest in Canada-wide early learning and childcare. Your government is already spending billions of dollars on the child benefit. When you talk about childcare, first of all, provincial responsibility, as you know, but second of all, are you going to create actual spaces, a national childcare program? And if so, what happens to the child benefit program? Do you have any timelines or costs on that?
Two things I'd like to say. I mean, first, I think what Canadians are asking of their governments, municipal, provincial, federal, is that we work together to help them make it through this. And the second thing is that we are seeing that women are way more affected by the pandemic than men are. They are, by and large, staying home, taking care of kids, and this is a problem on many different levels. And this is one with which we will be coming forward with some new initiatives in the coming months. To look at how we could address those problems, and we can see that based on what Quebec has done. Quebec has the highest rate of women back on the workplace because
I know,
of
but
this
it's also one of the most
system.
expensive. I think they paid $12 a day for childcare. I get it, but it's a very expensive system. So are you saying that the Quebec model is what you guys want to do nationally?
It's expensive for women to stay home and not being able to go and work. Like this keeps a lot of investment from happening in the Canadian economy. So there is a cost to that as well. We can't just look at one side of the equation and say, oh, it's going to be very expensive. And I'm not saying we're going to do what Quebec is doing, but we're certainly looking at this model and looking how we could work with our provincial and territorial partners to foster this throughout the country.
Right. Just last question on that. Would that be on top of the initial child benefit when you're already sending checks to families with kids under the age of 18 under a certain income? You're saying you'll do that plus some model like the Quebec model?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that in the coming weeks or months, perhaps, we will be coming up with some new initiative, and then we will have to see, do we keep the child benefit? How does it work with this new initiative that we would be presenting to Canadians? But there's a clear need for that to happen, and I think we can work with provinces and territories to make it happen.
Minister, Jagmeet Singh just said, look, I wanted paid sick leave. The government had agreed. They didn't mention it in the speech from the throne. And I wanted an extension of the CERB, which dries up at the end of the month. And he said, we're in the middle of a pandemic. He said, if those aren't there, he can't support this. The Conservatives can't support it, and the Bloc doesn't look like it. Why was there nothing on paid sick leave? And would your government ever consider extending the CERB, even though clearly it's not in here in the speech from the throne?
I think there's a lot of things that are there if you're progressive and looking at this throne speech. There's a lot of things to help workers. We're going to extend the wage subsidy until the middle of next week. Millions of people have benefited from the wage subsidy. We're going to help women. We're going to help disabled people. We have an ambitious plan for the environment and fighting for climate change. These are all things that, as progressive, I think we can rally behind. And
but
I would like to think that
specifically asked, but it's not. But he specific. I'm just telling you what he literally just said repeatedly. No paid sick leave, no extension of CERB, no deal.
And on CERB, I mean, we have announced, it still has to be voted through Parliament, but we have announced that we would be coming up with a CERB 2.0, the Canadian Emergency Recovery Benefit, and that we wanted to extend it until the middle of 2021. So as I said, there's a lot of there in that throne speech for progressive in this country, and I would like to think that we can all, as progressive, rally behind this.
Okay, finally, you said there's a lot for progressives. Conservatives say there was nothing for the energy sector. They say you left out Alberta. You left the energy sector high and dry. What's your response?
That's simply not true. I mean, if you look at where in Canada are renewable energies flourishing? Is it Quebec? Is it Ontario? Is it BC? No, it's Alberta. Alberta is the place in the country where where we can find right now the most investment in clean technologies and renewable energy. Look at what's happening in France, in Germany, in South Korea. They're investing tens of billions of dollars. And Alberta is part of this, as is Quebec, as is Ontario, as is the new British Columbia and the rest of the country. There is clearly a place for Albertans and Alberta in this throne speech as well.
All right, the Conservatives are pushing back on that, but Minister Guilbeault, always a pleasure to have you on the program. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, Evan.